Apophis fell, and with it, doomsday began. Annihilation was predicted, but it wasn't the end.
Thoroughly cloudy with southeasterly winds blowing in at 12 miles per hour. It is
hold up there, stranger. You got business here.
The authority continues to bring peace and love.
Watch yourself.
Wasteland roads aren't safe.
Mutants, 10, 20 of them. All over that valley.
The world you knew is gone.
Got a problem, and I believe you might be the man for the job.
Couldn't be any easier. What do you say?
S on the big screens. That gave me like little goosebumps going up the back there. I don't know about you guys. So, I want to thank you for coming out. Thank you for packing the house. We got people all the way to the back, it looks like. I can't tell. Yeah, there you are, back row. Let's hear it. So thanks for your attendance at the press conference. This is going to conclude our news portion of it, but I know you want to stay tuned for what's coming up next because, in my opinion, this is the most important 2 hours in gaming. It's my pleasure to introduce to you the technical director at id Software, the smartest man alive, John Carmack.
All right, Todd, thanks. All right, so I gotta say, I am especially happy to see everyone here this year because it was a dark day when we heard that the Anatole Hotel was pulling the reservation for QuakeCon so they could have a pharmaceuticals convention there. Like, what the hell? And we're looking at this and thinking, canceling QuakeCon or something. This just isn't right. So it was such a good thing that everybody ran around scrambling for a couple weeks, and we managed to get the Gaylord back here, which has always been a great location for QuakeCon. So I'm amazed it's all gone as smoothly as it has. Because there was some significant panicking involved there after that. But so a lot of people have told me that my talks have been getting more and more approachable each year here, and it's because we have more and more stuff going on. So instead of spending 2 hours talking about, obscure edge aliasing filtering algorithms or something that only the 20 people here really actually care about, I get to spend all this time covering all the other things that are going on. And there is so much going on now. I mean, I may wind up filling most of the time before, without getting down into the super deep details. We've got company-level things, big stuff going on there, all the projects that we're doing, the plans for the future. And when we talk about our plans internally, we're like, my God, we're planning things out 5 years from now. We kind of know what's going on for all this stuff and all these different things. But the biggest thing this last year, obviously, has been id Software becoming a part of ZeniMax Media. And that was a shock to a lot of people. And in fact, internally, when it was going on, the first meeting that Todd had, where he mentioned to everyone on the board, it's like, hey, we're having some discussions with these guys from ZeniMax Media. I said, who? I had to go in, look up on the internet and say, oh, Bethesda people. Okay, so that now I have something to kind of correlate all that with. But it was an interesting thing. And I know when most people heard that id Software was being acquired, the question was it Activision or EA? And that would be the only things that people would consider there. And honestly, if you had asked me several years ago if id Software is ever acquired, I would think, well, it's probably going to be Activision or EA. And it is interesting that, honestly, I try to stay out of most of the business stuff as much as possible. I mean, I'm a maker, I'm an engineer. I like to spend most of my time in front of my computer actually producing something. And while over the last several years, we've tried to get a lot more sort of rigorous and responsible about running the company properly, just because we've got so many people in it. You know, when you have a dozen people, you can afford to kind of go and do whatever you want. You know everybody, you know what everything's going on. But when you've got 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100 people, you know, you have to start paying a little bit more attention to that. So over the last few years, we've had our regular board meetings, and I've been sitting there going to the board meetings. When they go over about an hour, I start getting these spastic twitches about wanting to get out of the business meetings and get back to actually doing some productive work on building things. But the acquisition talks have been going on. It takes a long time to sort of finish these things up. And we've had these offers since the very beginning. Most of you probably don't realize that id Software was almost bought by Sierra Online right about the time we were releasing Wolfenstein. And that was, we were all down in California seeing the Williams out there, and that was something that could have gone one way and wound up not going that way, and it all worked out well. But we would get a steady stream of offers over the years, and it was, it's always flattering when people come up and say, oh, toss out some big number figure about wouldn't you like to sell the company for this. But, we took a lot of pride in being an independent company, and there were some things to be said about that. There was, there was an email or a discussion on Slashdot a few years ago about independent game studios. And there was a passage on there when people were talking about that, and somebody brought up id. And it was, you had one of those little manifesto types that goes on about independent studio starving artist types. And I was really heartened when somebody else pitched in and said, no, id Software is an independent studio. They're just a successful one as the difference there. And there's some level of pride in being one of the few remaining big independent studios that's not part of a larger corporate structure. But it's always something that you balance out. It was never, going into doing this was never because we desperately wanted our own company. We wanted to build our games. We wanted to be in an effective position to do that. And we've gone a long ways and done a lot of good things there. But we've always kind of kept our eyes on what we're doing, what the options are. And some of the things that we've really seen over the last several years as we've gone through the last few big projects, Quake 2, Quake 3, Doom 3, working with all the other stuff, is that more and more there's been a tension between the independent developers and the larger publishers. For instance, when we first started doing the early work with Activision, we were their shooter guys. id Software was Activision's FPS arm, and we went out and did the titles, and everybody's pushing for the same thing. But as Activision grew as a company and they brought more studios on, they had other people that were doing similar things, and we would find that as an external developer, we're to some degree competing with our own publisher there. And there's nothing, they're not colluding about it or anything, it's just a natural way that things happen. If you're part of a company there and you have your internal IP that you've spent tens of millions of dollars developing, and you've got your external IP that you're paying a really large royalty rate to this company for, if you've got a choice about how certain things are done, whether it's marketing resources or how you want to present things, how you want to slate things, marketing, production resources, these decisions, just as a large company, they get made in their best interests, which are usually not exactly the best interests of the external companies. That was part of the move towards EA partners with Rage, and that we felt that there was a little bit less tension on that because of the way that organization is structured there. But it's still not the same thing where when they're working for an outside developer, they don't have the same level of buy-in. No publisher does, because if they're going to put $20 million into marketing something, they feel a whole lot better inside if it's their own product. If they know that they're going to be doing the sequels, they're going to have all of this stuff going on. While if they know that they're spending all of this money building up the IP for something that could wind up going to a competitor next cycle, or just somebody else's value that they're building up, it's not real comfortable for them for all these eminently understandable reasons. So that's just something that we've been living with over the last few years, and our game plan, if you had asked us a year ago, and in fact, I joke to some of the employees that these talks that I give here at QuakeCon is sort of our game plan going forward. And I was talking last year about how we were doing with internally developing Doom, how we're going to take it all the way to sort of a vertical slice on our own nickel like we did with Rage, and then we're really going to twist some arms on the publishers to make them cough up a really good value for us. That worked well for us on Rage. We had built up the team. It was going well.